Okay, I would like to mention to everyone here, if you haven't already, please help yourself to the handouts at the table as you come in and sign in as well. The folks who handle these things for us also wish to strongly urge you to not forget the evaluation form that's included with one of those handouts when this is all wrapped up. I have second thoughts about that myself, but regardless, I'm the one being evaluated. As advertised, this is a discussion of the electronic records of interest to genealogists and how to access those records on our agency's Access to Archival Databases online resource. My name is Dan Law, and I'm with the National Archives and Records Administration's Archival Operations Electronic Records section. You don't want to answer the telephone with that. It's difficult to keep in mind. Also, I may disappear from time to time if I find it's easier to operate the computer mouse sitting down. That's just as well. I'm not that good looking, and in any event, I'm not the star of the show. It's the electronic records that are. The handouts themselves, the one headline, Access to Archival Databases, that you see on agency letterhead, is a thumbnail discussion of AAD and how to use it. The other one, Electronic Records Available Online for Genealogy or Other Personal Research, is a reference report put out by my division and places AAD in a larger context of our agency's electronic records, the electronic records holdings that involve genealogy. By way of disclaimer, I will not be taking you deeply into these records. There are simply too many of them and too many details involved. So this is an introductory level discussion. I will mention some of the more popular series involved and then demonstrate the mechanics of searching for records in AAD using all the bells and whistles available to you. After I finish the presentation, of course, we can have a question and answer session. To give you some context, Access to Archival Databases currently contains 62 series of electronic records, each containing one or more electronic data files that can be directly researched on the World Wide Web by the public. 27 of these electronic record series are of genealogical interest because they contain the names of individuals. 25 of these 27 series are listed in the genealogy and personal history category on the AAD homepage. It's the first one that you see there, and we'll bring up all of those for you. 25, count them, 25. An eclectic collection as well, as you see some of these. Occasionally, a series or two may be temporarily removed from the website, by the way, for technical maintenance, in the shop for repairs, if you will. The two series that are not in the genealogy and personal history category are the Index to the Records of the Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands. That has entries from the 18th to the 20th century, and you will find that one in the Indexes 2 category with the textual records link. That annoys us as much as it annoys the public. There it is. It's the first in that you see there. The other one is the Central Foreign Policy Files, commonly known as the State Department cables. That involves the years 1973 to 1976, and you access that through the Wars International Relations category, the last link, diplomatic records. In fact, that series is that entire link there. As for the more popular genealogy-related databases, most of them relate to 20th century military records or 19th century immigration. Now, in 2005, we posted the series World War II Army Enlistment Records, containing the names of over 9 million Army enlisted personnel. This series does not include other branches of the service or records of individuals who entered the Army as officers. There is a flood of interest in these World War II records, as World War II veterans have been dying in large numbers for several years now. Unfortunately, there isn't much information in them. However, they do have commemorative value for a great many people, 9 million individuals and their descendants. Really adds up. You can find this series by going to the Wars International Relations category and clicking the link for World War II. There you have it. There are also several databases of casualty records of more recent conflicts that contain more information regarding the individuals involved. You can find them by going to the genealogy personal history category and clicking the casualties link. Now, the most recent casualty records transfer is the Defense Casualty Analysis System, or the DCAS files, with records dating from 1950 through 2006. These include casualty records from the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Gulf War, the War on Terrorism, and from 1975 on, records of casualties occurring during peacetime. The electronic record series Defense Casualty Analysis, or DCAS extract files, just above that, includes the Korean War extract data file and the Vietnam conflict extract data file. These files contain records of U.S. military personnel who were hostile or non-hostile fatal casualties, or who were missing in action or prisoners of war in either the Korean War or the Vietnam conflict. They were compiled by the Department of Defense and are current into 2006. That makes them an update of earlier casualty databases for these two wars. There are also several other data files that contain casualty records for the Korean War. The Korean conflict casualty file is a Department of Defense database containing records of fatal U.S. military casualties that were caused by enemy action in Korea from 1950 to 1957. Interestingly enough, if you look at the statistics in that database, there were several hundred U.S. servicemen killed. This, by the way, is all branches of the service, not just the Army, in 1953 and 1954, even after the ceasefire. And there continued to be incidents for several years, as occasionally there are to this day. There is also the Adjutant General's Korean War casualty file. This is a database containing records of fatal and non-fatal U.S. Army casualties in Korea. It also includes persons who were missing in action and prisoners of war. This one stops at the end of 1953. There are also records of the repatriated Korean War prisoners of war and the Korean War data file of American prisoners of war. A bit further down. And these contain, each one of these contains a bit of data about over 4,000 Korean War POWs. POWs were considered battle or war casualties. Our office also has several other electronic record series that contain casualty records for the Vietnam War. The Combat Area Casualties Current File is a Department of Defense database which has records of hostile and non-hostile fatal U.S. military casualties during the Vietnam War. That is, again, the Department of Defense. That is all branches of the service. The Combat Area Casualties Returned Alive file contains final records of repatriated personnel. In other words, prisoners of war or people who went missing and returned alive. The file from the U.S. Army Casualty Information System. That is a U.S. Army database containing records of both fatal and non-fatal U.S. Army casualties worldwide due to hostile and non-hostile causes. One other item we have here, the COFELT database. This is a non-government project. It was primarily put together through the efforts of Vietnam veterans themselves. It consists of records of fatal U.S. casualties from all branches of the service that are due to both hostile and non-hostile causes. Its distinction is that it attempts to identify units down to the company, battery, or troop level, easily the most specific unit level of identification of all the casualty databases, and therefore especially useful to Vietnam veterans for contacting a veterans group for that unit or for individual service buddies. It is interesting, a great many people who served a few years after they're out, they don't actually remember the specific unit that they were in, down to the company or the battery or troop level. They remember individuals who were in, I remember this guy or that guy. Now, what was the name of the unit? So this can come in very handy for them. Now, some of the Korean and Vietnam databases can provide genealogical clues with data about an individual's home of record. But a clarification about that term. The home of record was provided by the serviceman or servicewoman upon last entry into the military service. The term home of record does not always refer to the place of birth, the residence of the next of kin, or the place of longest residence, or other common uses of the term hometown. In Korean War casualty records, the Army used county for home of record, and the Air Force, Navy, and Marines used city or town for home of record. In the Vietnam War casualty records, the city or town was always used. Now, I'm going to enter a search for the records of Michael Blassie. Some of you may recall, he was the only set of unidentified remains from the Vietnam War until he was disinterred from the Tomb of the Unknowns in 1997 and identified through advanced DNA analysis. So we'll do a global search through the entire category. And what you find here for Lieutenant Blassie is 4 records. So I want to emphasize here that while some of these databases were meant to supersede earlier databases, most, but by no means all, of the information found among the records will overlap. But if you find records for an individual in more than one of these databases, you should make your efforts worthwhile by examining every single record that applies to that individual. As long as you made the effort, you may as well get all the information that's there. In addition to military and casualty records, immigration records on AAD are widely used by genealogists. The Center for Immigration Research in Philadelphia donated the records of 4 passenger list databases and before I specifically delve into the records for Irish immigration, I'll mention that the other 3 series, as you can see, each have a structure similar to one another. Each one contains a passenger data file and a manifest header data file. For those of you fond of ethnic humor, I'm going to go to the Germans to America passenger data file and look for one Hans Fritz. So I couldn't restrain myself.
Hans Fritz. 4 million Hans, yes.
I'm sorry, I'm going to do something else. Note, I'm going to go to the search icon for the entire series. Now, if you click the search icon next to the desired electronic record series title, you will produce a series description page. This will have search icons for the passenger data file and the manifest header data file in that series. The page can also be very important to you in and of itself. Take notice of the function and use and the scope and content note that you will find on the series description page. These each will give you a plain English discussion of the series. So going back up to the top and clicking the search icon for the Germans to America passenger data file. On the display, I will enter the name, Hans Fritz, and shockingly enough, there's only one. He's not even from Germany. Now, I will click the View Record icon for the Display Full Records page. Note the number 37131. The manifest identification number is found in the passenger data file. I'll return directly to the series description page. I can do that by clicking back each page I've gone through so far, or more directly, using the breadcrumbs at the top. Just makes it a little easier. Based on, back on the series description page, I'm going to enter the manifest identification number. (37131) in the search box. And this is going to produce a search results page. No, I don't. With a very impressive 221 passenger data file records for all the passengers on the same voyage, similar to that of Hans Fritz. It also indicates the manifest header data file record for this voyage. And we can see that Mr. Fritz and the other 220 passengers arrived on the Saint Laurent out of Havre on Groundhog Day in 1883. So, In this particular data file, there's so little data involved. In this case, the partial record and the full record are identical. Now, as promised to show off all the bells and whistles to be found in AAD, I will return to the AAD homepage and start here by mentioning that the AAD homepage provides a Getting Started guide, which can give you tons of background and hours of fun in the privacy and convenience of your own home. It really is quite the catechism, as you can see. How do I get started? What will I find? What won't I find? And as for the hours of fun, as you can see, I wasn't kidding. As for finding a new record in AAD, there are a variety of search paths that you can pursue. To demonstrate how, I've chosen the Famine Irish data files, officially known as the records for passengers who arrived at the Port of New York during the Irish famine. Now, this includes the names of immigrants who landed at the Port of New York from 1846 to 1851, the period of the Irish famine. But it is not limited to just those who came from Ireland. It's everyone coming through New York during that 5-year span. If you suspect ethnic bias on my choice, it's a near miss. I have to point out to people that going to Catholic school in the Kennedy years, I got to 6th grade before I figured out I was not Irish. Now, near the top of the screen, there's an AAD global search engine with the advanced search function, which will give you more search criteria, as well as the basic search function. I emphasize that this will only search the contents of the records in AAD themselves. You should not try and use this to locate the databases. You just go right into each category if that's what you're interested in. You can also click the Show All Series link to list every record series in AAD. All 62 of them listed there. There's a lot more categories than genealogy. You can browse by subject for terms such as names personal, emigration and immigration, Irish, immigrants, and passenger lists. You can also browse by category and then topic, as we've been doing since the beginning. You could go to genealogy personal, civilians, passenger lists. You could go to places, countries, counties. You could also go to time span in the last column, 1800 to 1900. Here you will find a list of series in the category for that century, anything related to that time period, not just the passenger list again. Repeating here that collection CIR translates into plain English as the Center for Immigration Research Collection. The center was a part of the Balch Institute in Philadelphia, and they have since donated the collection to the Historical Society of Pennsylvania. Mentioning again that each electronic record series in AAD comes with a very helpful series description page. And again, take notice of the scope and content note and the function and use statements, which will provide a great deal of useful information for you. One other thing I'd like to mention on this series description page is extremely important down near the bottom, finding aid type. The link for technical information. If the documentation, the textual or paper documentation is scanned and it is on AAD, that link will take you there. Some of this is admittedly quite technical, not all that interesting. But some of this can be used directly in searching the database. I'm going to open up the We're not interested in Russians today. I'm on the wrong. Oh dear. Okay. Much better. The first 10 pages of the manifest header code list. That is an immense list. As you can see, we've had to put it in several different files, but regardless. Okay, take note of just the first entry there, Garrick and all those numbers. You can see a date, January 30, 1847. The other numbers are going to be quite significant as we go through our searches from now on. You will see those popping up. The list of Irish port codes, again, will underscore that not everyone was coming from Ireland. Marseille, Havana, Rio de Janeiro. And likewise, the list of country codes. Finland, Nova Scotia, Prussia. My personal favorite, the occupation code list. Okay, you could have been an agiato, you could have been an aeronaut, you could have been an aquaterret, and if you have ever been any of those things, would you please tell me what they are? I've been looking at this for many years now. Regardless, we're going to close the technical information page and return to the series description page. And I might mention here as a footnote, if you were to click either of the file unit info links, you would find some more metadata, a little bit more documentation. Metadata simply means data about data. And as I said, a lot of this is less than thrilling. Be that as it may, it's a nice little term to toss out at the dinner table that you were perusing the metadata when you were conducting your research. That should shut them up. We're going to click the search icon for the list of ships that arrived at the port of New York during the Irish famine. And this will bring us to a fielded search page for this data file with its data fields displayed. Now, notice this data file does not contain any names. But it should help those researchers who already have some information, such as the port of embarkation or the date of arrival, find more information about that ship on the specific voyage. And again, I'll emphasize here that throughout AAD, you will find numerous avenues you can use in your search for the records. You can use the search engine up top to cast a wider net. You can enter values into the specific data fields. You can go forward step by step, or again, you can backtrack using the breadcrumbs at the top of the screen like so. I'm just going to go back one to the series description page, and on that description page, I will enter the name Patrick Henry for both data files, and we'll see what we get. This brings up 3,779 records for the total number of records for the two data files of this series. And if we click the View Records icon for the Famine Irish passenger record data file, we'll come to a Display Partial Records page. And here you can see all of the arrivals for any ship or any person named Patrick Henry, or whose names contain either Patrick or Henry or both. My favorite is the first one here. The odds are in favor of anyone named Patrick Henry Greenway, who was born aboard the Patrick Henry, of getting into the country. He had smart parents. Further down, you have a Henry Dinsmore, an Anne Henry, and a Patrick Lynch. Again, anyone, Patrick Henry or Patrick or Henry. So I'm going to go up and click the Free Text Results breadcrumb, return to take a look at the list of ships that arrived at the port of New York during the Irish famine. And on the Display Partial Records page, all the voyages for the ship Patrick Henry. Click the View Record icon, and this is what the data fields look like when they are filled in. You have the manifest identification number, the name of the ship, where it started from, when it arrived, and the number of passengers aboard. So on this Display Full Records page, we're going to click the series list breadcrumb. So we can start at the beginning, so I can show you a direct path for going to an individual's data file. We will once again click the search icon for the Famine Irish passenger record data file. Now, if you think you have, if you have some information and you want more specific information than the data fields provide from that fielded search page, you can add some more. Clicking the Show More Fields icon. Now, as you can see, the fielded search page, the default data fields are highlighted in yellow, and if you wish, you can select additional data fields for your search by placing a check in the box next to them and clicking the Submit button at the top of or bottom of the list. I am interested in occupation. Go back, click the Submit button. There we go. You have the occupation code. Now, going to select from the code list. You have an aside here on the code list concerning, again, a little bit more of information about the format used for the data field. You think of one of these as you would information to an asterisk. Now, to conduct a search, I'm going to assume I have some data, but am uncertain about it. This is National Women's Month, so I will pick a female ancestor, a servant by the name of Ellen Doyle, who arrived here before 1847. So we've added the occupation data field. I'm going to take a guess that as she was a servant, I'm going to put the codes in alphabetical order. Probably the most likely code will be something around SV or so. Overshot the mark. Chambermaid or servant. Okay, that's what I want. So you have the occupation code entered. I'm going to enter the last name Doyle, the first name Ellen, and I know she arrived before 1847. The drop-down menus will come in handy for you here. The passenger arrival date, not equals, I want something before 1847. How do they enter the dates? I'll click the sample values link. And they enter it straight, day, day, month, month, year, 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 year. So before January 1st, 1847. Click the search button. There she is. I have a partial record that tells me that a 24-year-old Ellen Doyle, native of Ireland, arrived in New York on August 22nd, 1846. But like everyone else, she arrived, by the way, on the ship Oxford out of Liverpool. Again, note those numbers and the manifest identification number, along with the date of arrival. But I want more information. So I'll display the full record. A little bit more information added here. She will be staying in the US. She traveled in steerage. This is what the finished product looks like. You can also click the print icon at the top of the page for a product suitable for framing. Looks great in home or office. Now, I want to draw your attention to those values and the meanings for the port of embarkation, the manifest identification number, and the passenger arrival date near the bottom of the screen. The port of embarkation code of 4 for Liverpool and the passenger arrival date of 8/22/1846 are repeated in the meaning for the manifest identification number code of 1138. The manifest identification number also indicates 122 passengers aboard ship. You may recall that data field for number of corresponding passengers on the search page for the list of ships that arrived at the Port of New York. Also, the manifest identification number identifies, again, not just a ship's name, but more specifically, each individual voyage it took. That is an extremely valuable piece of data. To access the manifest identification number code list, we'll just click that link to bring up a detailed information page, again containing a discussion of the codes. It will also contain a view link for the code list itself. So, it's a long one. Manifest identification number 4467, the Abbey Land, again out of Liverpool, 004. It arrived on May 7th, 1850, and it had 210 passengers aboard. I hope you're getting the picture here, that no matter where you are in AAD, it's hard to be lost. Again, you can go sideways, you can go forward, you can go back. You're always near some stepping stone that can reorient you if you're getting a little confused by all the data.
What was the second number on that?
The Abbey Land?
Yeah, like the 04, I think it was.
Okay, 004. That was the code for the Port of Liverpool.
Oh.
Remember, there was that list we saw called Irish port codes. It included such towns as Havana and Rio de Janeiro. Now, let's do a wider search by category. All the people named Doyle who were born at sea during the same time period, before 1847. So we'll go back to the display full records page, use the breadcrumbs to jump back to the fielded search page. We're going to click the clear form button because I don't want that occupation code in there anymore. That would only give me servants, and not many of whom are likely to have been born at sea. So, clearing the form, and I'll just remove the unneeded field. I'll just go all the way. So once again, I'll avail myself of the show more fields. Scroll down, it's the occupation code that I no longer want. And have to remember to click the submit button to make your change stick. Now, I will enter the value Doyle for last name. From the code list for age, I'm lucky this time, born at sea is right there. Again, I can click the box or I can enter 900, clicking the submit button again. And the drop-down menu for the passenger arrival date. Again, it will be before the result here is 4 partial records. You can arrange them by any category you like with the blue triangles. You could arrange them alphabetically by first name. I will just arrange them by date. And note, by the way, at the top, you have twins born at sea, John and Hugh Doyle. Yes, immigration is not pretty. And again, to view the full record, we'll take a look at Hugh Doyle.
How do you know that?
Come in, Hugh Doyle. Well, they were born on the same voyage. John and Hugh. Oh, okay, we're not absolutely guaranteed, but what are the odds? Doyle.
Two sisters.
Could be. There are some jokes that are coming to mind here that I'll just leave aside. But there it is. You've got Hugh Doyle, the finished product. And by the way, you can also, again, emphasizing that wherever you are in AAD, you're close to something else. You can go right down the list. Alfred Doyle. Maria Doyle. And there you have it. As I said, it was an introductory survey. You have just seen every bell and whistle that AAD has. No, we're not giving you a test. But again, re-emphasizing the stepping stone approach. You'll be all right. If you do have any questions, I would be glad to help out.
Sir,
Yes.
what is the earliest record? You say before 1846, but any records in the AD earlier than that?
Okay, we were just looking at one specific database, the Famine Irish records.
Yeah.
For immigration?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go back and take a look. We can show you those dates. 1834 for the Russians, 1850 and 1855 for the Germans and Italians, respectively. Also, again, the series information page, the series description page, not just the scope and content note or the function and use, but a lot of data up at the top. This one for the Germans covers 1850 to 1897, where it came from. Center for Immigration Research, again, that was donated to us from a non-government source. As a rule, if Uncle Sam didn't produce the record, we don't have it because we are the records repository for the United States government. So, yes, ma'am.
What if, do you ever get to see the original scan of that information, or is?
You can see that on microfilm.
Okay, you have to come here.
No, you will not find it on AAD.
Okay.
You saw the original scan of the paper documentation, but in the textual research room, the microfilm research room is where you would go for that.
And how about if the name of the person was misspelled? You just.
We wish you well.
Okay.
Yes. There are worse things, and in fact, keep in mind, especially when the further back in time you go, the less literate people are. A key thing in genealogy is there is no such thing as a perfect set of records. That is, you're dealing with the problem of a bureaucracy. There's also no such thing as a perfect family memory, in which case you're dealing with your relatives. And I'll leave you to do that. So it is a detective game. Not just AAD, but anything involving genealogy. It is not a 9-to-5 progression where you go logically from A to Z. Your breakthroughs and your roadblocks will both be unexpected.
Can you, in your search, let's say that you know that the name might have been misspelled, are there the little, and I don't know how to.
You can use wildcards, and there's a discussion of how to use wildcards in AAD, the Getting Started Guide, which you find you're right on the first page. Yes, sir.
You have lists of West Coast immigration arrivals?
Not on AAD. AAD is New York for the Irish. The other three, New York and eastern ports, Baltimore, Boston, Philadelphia. But West Coast ports or overland across the border, Canadian border, that would be on microfilm.
Yes, I have a question. When you showed us like Hans Fritz, young boy, 10 years old, traveling, he's probably traveling with someone else, hopefully.
Right.
Is there a way that you could find the list of every passenger that was on that ship with that manifest number in AAD?
Oh, yes, that's what we do.
Without searching for, if you didn't know the name of the other people,
Okay, you could enter the name Fritz,
just Fritz.
right.
Okay.
And
narrow
just
it
leave
down to
leave
that
it at
man.
that. Oh, yes, absolutely.
Or even just everyone that's on that ship, it'll give
Yeah, you can bring up everyone on the ship, you can bring up everyone named with a surname Fritz, or what have you. Now, for identifying them specifically as family groups, your microfilm collection will give you a little bit more confidence. As you go through the names on AAD, especially if it's a common name, sometimes the first names are similar, the ages are similar, and all of that. But you can search by surname. Yes, sir.
So we can access all of this from home?
Oh, yes, you can, absolutely.
What's the address? I can't read it.
Okay, you just go to archives, www.archives.gov/AAD. This actually has aad.archives.gov, but either one will get you there. Let me just go to the National Archives homepage. And the first rectangle, Research Our Records, you will find it there, access to archival databases. Okay. Let's see what happens here. Well, you get anything and everything regarding AAD. So your best bet is
Put it in.
let's go to Research Records, click AAD. Again?
How about when the new census comes out, is that gonna be, we can access that?
That's, we don't have plans to put, there's no census records on AAD in terms of, 1920, 1930, 1940. It takes a great deal to prepare these. It took us years, a couple of years, to put the first 33 electronic record series on AAD. It's a question of staffing and man hours. It has lurched forward. A couple of years later, we added, I think, another 10, maybe even 20 or so. And now we're up to 62. It's almost doubled since 2003. Yeah, and it is phenomenally popular, too.
Now, when you say you're putting them on, you're not creating the databases, you're going out and taking existing databases and putting them on this.
Yes. In fact, mine was the Famine Irish. The Center for Information Research did prepare the immigration databases. Okay. Well, as I said, it's hours of fun, so knock yourself out. Well, let's find out. Actually, that's not a category I go to very much, but okay, we've got 13 series, corporate organizations, savings and loan. Some of these actually, if you've got any relatives who are white-collar criminals, they can show up in a couple of these.
I should do that.
And some of these, the disparity, things like the World War II, the Army serial number is hugely popular. The immigration files are hugely popular. A couple of these are real dogs, and nobody bothers to look at them. But most of them are fairly popular, and the ones related to genealogy, are easily the most popular.
Okay, well, I don't know what that looked like. right
Okay.
this
My last name is Law,
next.
so I
Oh.
want to know about you.
Okay.